Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to be talking about 10-minute sessions because they've been popping up quite a lot in the media recently. Of course, I've been using this form of teaching since I started Rhythm for Reading. So to contextualise this, we are in May in 2025, and May, of course, is the month of revision and assessments. But so many children are struggling with studying, and to such an extent that schools are breaking learning down into 10-minute study sessions. So this week I've been thinking again about the effects of technology, but in much broader terms this time. So a 10-minute session is a strategy that works really well for children with scattered attention. In Rhythm for Reading, I've always used this approach. It's just long enough to work intensively and to finish with the children wanting more. Finishing the session in an energized state is a really smart thing to do because ending the session before you feel tired sends the brain a really strong signal that this was more like fun than work. And there are, of course, more opportunities for peak learning if you use 10-minute sessions for studying because the brain learns best when it's in the middle of a study session rather than at the beginning or at the end. So having 6 peak moments in an hour rather than 1 is obviously going to be really helpful, especially for children with scattered attention. Sustained learning is also very important, and of course we want our children to be focused on learning for more than 10 minutes at a time, ideally. However, many children are spending so much time on the internet that they are losing their capacity for sustained focus and attention. And of course, there are also children who needed to develop this from scratch when they started school. And if they are using the internet, this area of development may well be absolutely blocked from them. So today, as I said, I want to really zoom out so that we can see a broader context for all of this. All of the most powerful ideas that are a big part of our culture nowadays had their roots in the 1950s and 1960s. Back then, there were real concerns about productivity in farming and food security. Rationing had been enforced for years after the Second World War. And actually this week we celebrated the 80th anniversary of VE Day. And there is now, of course, a surplus of food, and unfortunately much of it is wasted, even though children are starving in all the places on the planet that have been ravaged by human aggression. Back in the 1950s and 60s, when food security was a top priority, a team of researchers led by a scientist called Harry Harlow ran experiments on baby monkeys. They discovered that the monkeys would survive if they were separated from their mothers, and this discovery was a major breakthrough for livestock yields and also a major breaking down of the natural bond between mother and child. The result was industrial farming of livestock. So for educators, the details of this experiment are actually far more important. In the experiments, monkeys were offered a metal mother made of wire, which dispensed milk from a bottle, and she had a crudely drawn face. And there was also a cloth mother with no milk, and again, a crudely drawn face. The scientists were so surprised to see that each infant monkey preferred to starve while clinging to the cloth mother for comfort in these very artificial conditions. The two mothers were pushed closer together so that the infant monkeys could cling to the cloth mother and still drink milk from the bottle that was fastened to the wire mother. When these infant monkeys were released back into the company of other monkeys, they were aggressive and they struggled to socialise and to play normally alongside all the others. So although these infant monkeys survived their ordeal, they were emotionally disturbed for their entire lives. The two mothers were pushed closer together so that the infants could drink from. These days, it's true that we have food surpluses, but productivity is actually a main concern of our schools. It's really a question of how to get more done in a shorter amount of time and how to obtain better yields, if you will, from the minds of the children. A second theme that shapes us today and has its roots in the 1960s is the rise of the superhero. Marvel comics and movies were really popular before and after World War II. The ideal of the superhero character who rescues innocent people from villains and saves the universe is rooted in the monomyth identified by Joseph Campbell as the hero's journey. This particular pattern of storytelling has had a strong resurgence in the 21st century and made all the more alluring and magical by advances in CGI and other special effects which play with and distort the audience's perception of time. Also, flashing lights push visual processing to the very limits of what is considered safe for some people. The collective effect of the hero's journey has always been to teach and to hold attention for a very long period of time. And the first such tale was the story of Gilgamesh, who was horrified by the idea of death and wanted to thwart it by becoming immortal. There is evidence to suggest that these were not the stories told among ordinary people who pray to nature and the great goddess for abundance and good fortune. No, these were the stories that helped the earliest civilizations of the Fertile Crescent to shape the first cultural practices amid rapid population growth. There were clear benefits of organizing human behavior around a single belief system. These stories sprang up around the world in places where there was a social class of scribes and priests who oversaw the distribution of goods, food supply, and trade. In storytelling around the proverbial hearth, humans naturally use hyperbole and exaggeration to build rapport and to take their audience on a spin around the powerful feelings of awe, admiration, and wonder. And it's interesting that in the 21st century, the scientific community concerned with Project Gilgamesh is very interested in human enhancement through technology. The roots of comic book superheroes may be the fantasies of the mid-20th century, but since then we find ourselves knee-deep in GMOs and life-changing prosthetics that are enhanced by nanotechnologies. The genetically modified Spider-Man helps us to appreciate the wonders of science whilst connecting us to recent cultural icons of our grandparents. Things have changed a lot, even in the past 15 years. The Marvel films started to ramp up production of their superhero movies, games and TV programs, and children started to own smartphones. I began rhythm reading in 2012, and since then there have been huge breakthroughs in what scientists have uncovered about learning. Rather than apply this to education and to help children, this information uncovered by science is being applied to robotics and AI. When I realised this, I was truly shocked. In fact, in 2013, when I piloted Rhythm for Reading in Year 7 and had the most incredible results, the school actually assessed the children as well. And many of the children made more than a year's progress as measured by the Suffolk reading scales. I was really relieved, and I was also really intrigued by the results, because at that point in 2013, the amount of information that's available to us through neuroscience was still in very early stages. I'm going to show you the results that they sent through to me. That the highlighted column is actually where the new reading age is after using Rhythm for Reading for 10 weeks. We started after the October half term and we finished around the time of the February half term. And then in the column after the highlighted one, you can see the change in reading. So altogether on this list, there are 27 children's data. As you can see, 3 of them are absent. We've got 24 who completed the follow-up testing, and of the 24, 11 made a year's progress or more. Some of them made more than 2 years progress, so this was very encouraging indeed. I continued to work with this secondary school, and they said that they decided to give a booster morning classes for older children, and this was something that they'd learned from Rhythm for Reading. They found that a 10-minute session worked really well for these children. So what's going on? Why is it that 10-minute study sessions and Rhythm for Reading sessions are such gold? It's because 10 minutes is a short unit of sustained attention. The brain stays fresh, and as I said earlier, there would be 6 peaks of focused attention if you did the 10-minute sessions over a whole hour. Of course, in Rhythm for Reading, we do them once a week. So altogether, that means that we've got 100 minutes. But for children who are struggling to focus their attention, a shorter session is definitely a big bonus. The aim is to really achieve more in a shorter period of time, and the key is to using a playful approach. When children are relaxed and playful, they are much more likely to engage and to become truly absorbed by what they are doing. So rather than feeling depleted and dulled by learning, the children's curiosity is fired and they really enjoy their rhythm for reading sessions. I actually asked the school whether they would expect to see that level of progress at the start of year 7, and they said definitely not. At a different school, one teacher once said to me, I get that you settle them for the first 5 minutes, but then what do you do after that? I was amazed by this question because I couldn't understand why you would waste 5 minutes of precious learning time for settling down. Everything in Rhythm for Reading is timed down to the second. So if you think of any activity involving movement, track and field events or dance and gymnastics, warming the body and the mind up is exactly what happens in every training session. After all, it's only in the past 200 years that most children have been taught in a classroom. Sitting down for most of the day is a very new thing. So I can understand why settling down is necessary, because the children have to discharge excess physical energy that they can't burn off normally. When we think about the oldest schools in this country, they have a really large campus and their pupils walk for 5 to 10 minutes between the lessons. And in the afternoons, games lessons are really important, not only for discharging physical energy, but also for building strength and stamina and strategic thinking and teamwork. So in my opinion, all children would benefit from this same approach. I discovered in Rhythm for Reading that children with the most physical and emotional tension did not learn unless there was a structure for them based on rhythm and movement. And it was using this structure that they were able to learn how to hold and guide their own focus and attention. And when this happened, we would get mastery very, very quickly. So if children are scattered when they enter a classroom, they will find their control in very small moments. The flashing lights and the sudden noises, the quick-fire responses of video games, films and TV programs that the children currently enjoy have shaped their reward centres. In the Guardian newspaper this week, one head teacher was quoted referring to a TikTok brain in primary school children. Play is the most efficient mode of learning for children, and it's quite ridiculous that innocent children are being shaped by technologies that have been shaped by adults who get paid well to do this so-called creative work. Our consumption of technology has led to technoference, and this affects us in two ways. Firstly, from the outside as a straightforward distraction, but also from the inside because it degrades the way that our brain networks connect inside our own system and also with that of others. We need to shape technology for our own use, yes, but we do not need to be shaped by it. Children need structured mental spaces that feel stable, and a teacher who sees what they need and can hold those spaces steady for them will see transformation. Let's take a really clear example. In fact, the first technology developed by humans, the needle. If you ask a child to thread a needle, their first task is to find stillness within, and the second task is to use that level of focus to guide the thread through the eye of the needle. It takes practice for the child to learn to do this. In some ways, a needle is a mobile device. You cannot engage with it without involvement from human eyes and special manual skills developed whilst using the needle. The coordination of the hands and the eyes must bring pure and sustained focus to the use of the needle. But this one simple act of threading a needle made magic happen. It changed the human outlook and opened up an amazing range of possibilities. Humans became able to move into pristine new environments free of parasites and competition because they had clothing. And we now have a whole new cultural era opening up right now, involving space, technology, and human development. In education, our role is to understand as quickly as we can how we can protect, strengthen, and develop children's attention and focus during this time of acceleration in technology. If you have children in your class who are struggling with focus and attention, you might like to join my next webinar on Thursday at 8 p.m. British time. I really look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.